Oh, guys, I've been so blessed just hosting this platform. And I do hope that you are liking, you're commenting, and you're subscribing, as well as sharing this content. Because, yeah, we really need to reach as many people as we can so that people are becoming empowered and their lives are transformed. You know, I'm reflecting on the conversations that I've had with the guests that have come on to the platform. One of them was a global speaker, Siphiwe Moyo. And it was one of those conversations. And it's interesting how, you know, you can pick up when somebody has a relationship with God. And that has happened with a few people whose relationship with God is so intact that when you meet them, you just have that sense. Siphiwe was one of those. Jabu was one of those. Dani was one of those. And Pastor Noktula was one of those. As many others as well who have come and whom I've met in my life. There's a sense of calmness, connection, but there's something that I can't explain, that you just connect with the person. And I remember after having the conversation with Siphiwe, we went outside, and when we were outside, it's just like another conversation would start. It was one thing after the other. Yeah, but I must point out that I'm standing next to him. I'm really short because I kind of like, you know, very yeah. I'm digressing. Getting into the conversation, of my reflection with that conversation was about something that he shared around the weaponization of masculinity, of vulnerability. And when I reflected on it, I realized that most men, if not all, whenever a man opens up from a vulnerability perspective, whenever a man opens up and shares the most intimate part, or the most kind of difficult part about himself, or a vulnerable part about himself, or a weakness about himself, at a later stage that becomes weaponized against him. It is used against him, and so he realizes it is not a safe space. And there are probably many married men who are in marriages where they've decided, I'm just not going to open up. I'm just not going to share this part about myself. They'd rather either share it with a friend or just never share with anyone, because some are not as blessed to have men who create those safe spaces for them, where they can be that vulnerable and sensitive with other men. And for those who have created those spaces for men, I salute you. I almost say I take my hat off to you, but I'm not wearing a hat. But nonetheless, it's important to create a safe space for a man to be vulnerable. And vulnerability means that he can share things that are deep in his heart. And when an argument ensues much later, nothing about that conversation is used. I remember watching this clip from a movie. I just can't remember what the movie is. Husband and wife are in an argument, and the husband is saying, I would have supported you. I would have given you the space. I would have allowed you to have your opportunities. I would have been there for you to do the things that you wanted to do. And then she snaps, and then she says, oh, when? In between those panic attacks. And then he freezes. And then he withdraws from the conversation. Then she realizes what she's done. But unfortunately, the thing about words is once you've said something, it's gone. You cannot take it back, no matter how you try. You cannot say, let's rewind those words I did not say. There are things that you can take back, but not your words. And so the damage by then is done when you have said those words. And therefore, when a man has become vulnerable and exposed the weaker side of his masculinity, and then you use that against him, he'll never open up. And sometimes we've got this notion, and equally so even on women, there's a certain pedestal that we've placed women, and we do not expect them to be making mistakes, to be behaving in certain ways. And so we become surprised, we become over judgmental, or even judgmental when they fall from a pedestal that we have placed them upon. Equally so, we have looked at men as these beings who should not be vulnerable. Men are not expected to be vulnerable. It is only when the suicide statistics are starting to pile up and the awareness around suicide, and men being most of those who commit those acts of unaliving themselves, that now we start to say men must talk. But when a man talks, he's quickly interjected. Yeah, but no, you men think you're the only ones going through this. And so men then realize this is not a safe space for me. And so he pulls back. And sometimes never to come out of that shell. And so we have to ask ourselves, how can we do that? It starts from even allowing the boy child to be vulnerable and allow him to identify and express his emotions in such a way that he understands what he is feeling and he is able to articulate it. And then it is also having the girl child beside him acknowledge how he feels. And in acknowledging how he feels, it is not to say her feelings don't matter. It is to say, at that moment when you are on the floor and you're expressing yourself, you matter. And because you matter, I will listen to you. I will not seek to superimpose myself, my experiences, and my thoughts on you. But I will listen. I will actively listen. I will pay attention to what you're saying. I will seek to understand what you are going through at that point in time. Never to say, let's get through this conversation so that in the end I will tell you, oh yeah, you know, it was just like me the other day. Oh, I hope you get to do the same for me one day. Or now it's my turn to do this, because then by doing that, you've just invalidated the entire thing, because then you're saying, I was paying attention and I was showing you how to pay attention because I want you to do that for me now. It is simply saying, I am present. I am here. I'm listening to you. I hear you. And I empathize. What do you need from me? How can I support you right now in what you've just told me, in what you've just said? And this is when the conversation is between a man and a woman. And I would imagine between a man and a man, where I'm opening up to a friend and a brother, and I'm opening up to him. Ish. Phew. I hear you, my friend. So, what do we do now? How do we get through this? What do you need from me, buddy? Right? And you sit there with him. You listen. And the thing is, it's much simpler for men, because when a man asks for a solution, he's actually asking for a solution. When he shares a problem with another man, with actually anyone, he's actually expecting a solution. And so, when a man has opened up, don't be too quick to give advice. Don't be too quick to override. Don't be too quick to judge. Don't be too quick to superimpose. And never, ever, ever use that against him. Ever. There must never be any circumstance that is justifiable for you to use what he shared with you in his moment of vulnerability against him. Because once you do that, firstly, it exposes your character as a person, and that you are not worthy of being trusted. And secondly, it means all of that you did it for a benefit, and you've just invalidated it. You've just taken a dagger and just put it right through his heart, and you've spun it around and around, and his heart is smashed into pieces, and you've created a rock out of him. Because then men will not talk after that. And never take what a man has shared with you in their moment of vulnerability and go publish it elsewhere. And then you go, hey, did you hear that so-and-so is going through? Hey, do you know that this one said this and he's like this, and hey, that one is less of a man? Oh, don't. Please. Never. Let it be that what that man shares with you in his moment of weakness, it becomes something you keep. It becomes something you take to God in prayer, and you say, Lord, Zibuse has shared this with me. I do not know how to process it. I do not know what to do with it. And so, Lord, take it from my hands, and I'm giving it to you. And while I give it to you, I ask that you intervene on his behalf in whatever he's going through, especially in this area, so that he's strengthened and he is lightened to walk this journey. Because when you do that, you have released it from yourself and you've cast it to God. And because you've done that, you are able to be a better friend, a better husband, a better wife, a better brother, a better father to that man. Because Lord knows we need that. Lord knows men need more safe spaces. Men do talk, because when a man starts to talk, doesn't want to stop until all that he needed to let out is out. And when it's out, you'll know. When he's okay, you'll know. But until then, let him. Give him that space. And throughout, I can hear that woman saying, yeah, but what about us women? No, the topic is not women. The topic is about men. The subject is men. And then, that's the biggest mistake. That's the biggest mistake that women make. When you tell them about a man, they say, yeah, but also, yeah, we too you think that you men are the only ones who are going through this, please avoid that at all costs. When your time to be heard comes, you will be heard. But right now, let it be about this subject. Let it be about this person. Let it be about the man. And I hope you take something from this that empowers you to be a better person. That even when you think about gossiping, about that moment of vulnerability, that you think twice. Because by thinking twice, you allow yourself to be a better person, even when somebody will never know what it is that you had wanted to say. And when you've listened to a man cry, when you've listened to a man pour out his pain, it's very likely that you will be burdened by the heavy weight of that pain, and you don't know what to do with it. Sometimes you don't need to know what to do with it, and sometimes the only thing you can do for him is take it to God and pray. Oh, what a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and grief to bear. Oh, because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Jesus says, take my yoke upon you because it is easy. So let us take Jesus' yoke as we help men become vulnerable and allow them to be vulnerable, because a man can be strong and his strength is enabled by his ability to be vulnerable. Because if you think about it, even the hardest rock was once soft at some point in its formation. So let him, give him that space, and be careful of weaponizing his vulnerabilities. We don't need that. I'm sure there are many women who do not know the depth of the pain that dwells in a man's heart, in their sons' hearts, in their brothers' hearts, and in their husbands' hearts, and in their fathers' hearts, because those men have never been given the space to be themselves. And for you, if you're a man watching this and listening, take caution of who, when, and how you become vulnerable, because not everyone deserves to hear the pain in your heart. And you cannot go around planting your vulnerability as if you're planting seeds for a forest, because that will only come back to bite you. So take caution on how you become vulnerable and to whom you become vulnerable. Jesus had disciples, and then he had 12. He had the chosen, and then he had 12. And then after the 12, he had 3. So who's your 3 that you can open yourself up to? It's worth thinking about. So as I close this, I ask you to go back into that episode where I had Siphiwe, and he was talking about the weaponization. And also, another aspect that I want to bring, which was part of that conversation, was when we talked about church. And I'd love to hear from you what you think the ideal church environment for men would be. Because what we touched on was the current setup of a church service is not, maybe not for all churches, but is not necessarily conducive for men to open up or for men to be themselves. And some fora for men in the church are still almost a preaching perspective, but not an engaging environment or a safe space. Sometimes the weaponization of a man's pain does not come from women, but it also comes from platforms like those. Sometimes a man becomes vulnerable at work, and then the person to whom he became vulnerable uses it against them. Gets weaponized. So we shut. So I hope this gives you a perspective of how to engage with the vulnerability of a man, and that once you find yourself in that space, or if you've been in that position before and you did not handle it well, it gives you an opportunity to go back and say, I'm sorry. Maybe I could have done better. And I don't know if that man will be able to open up, but I do think that he will get to the point where he will test by something not so vulnerable, by something so insignificant. It seems like a vulnerability, but it's actually something very small that he's going to give that to you and see. Do you use it against him? Do you mock him for that? Or do you respect it? Do you honor it? Do you cherish it? And do you take it to God in prayer? This is Zibuse L Kunene. Thank you for joining me. Remember, it is a monologue on video, but it's a dialogue on the comment section. So make sure that you comment, you share, you like, you subscribe, you follow, so that we grow together. Till next episode.